how scenario planning can help you see the many roads ahead. Coming up on Enriching Wealth, we'll be talking about scenario planning and how that can affect your future positively. Welcome back. We have a lot to get to today when it comes to scenario planning. So we are going to be diving into a couple different aspects here. What is scenario planning? The different types of scenario planning, simple and the complex. And then we will end our time talking about implementation and how to work with the strategic implementation that comes with that. Well, let's dive in here. Scenario planning in and of itself is very simple. It is really just the idea and concept that we can be putting different plans in place and having different alternative futures for our wealth, as well as, in this case, our business. That's what we want to be talking about today, how we can be thinking about and putting different plans in place and call these alternative futures. That's what scenario planning is. It's a very, very easy to grasp and understand, but it's a lot harder to actually put in place without doing a little thought process and just kind of thinking about what it is that you want. So let's do this. Let's kind of talk through what is scenario planning. Well, like I said, it's just an alternative future that we are trying to work with. But it really comes down to the goals that we have, so where we are today, the things that we want for the future, so that alternative future, and then seeing how we get there. So call this the roadmap, the guide. That's what it is. That's what scenario planning is. And there's two ways that we can be working with scenario planning. The first way is a little bit more simple type of a scenario plan. So that really involves putting together and knowing where we're at today, putting together some thoughts for the future. So this can be some ideal outcomes that we want. This can be some ideas as to where we want to go. Well, now we put into place some thoughts of maybe some different things that could happen. So best case scenario, worst case scenario, maybe even just a kind of middle of the road even as well. So once we have that, once we know kind of where we are at today, where we want to go, and starting to think about some of those different scenario processes, well, then we can start putting together some thoughts on each of those scenarios and what we need to be doing in order to accomplish those scenarios. So that's a thought process that comes into place. That's taking some, maybe a matrix that you may create to make it that way. Well, once we get to that point, start thinking through all of those different plans and outcomes, then we can start getting to that final piece that is the monitoring of it. So we have where we're at today, where we want to go in the future, and there could be multiple future outcomes that we want. So that's another set of scenario planning. Now remember, we don't need to just do one scenario plan. Actually, a really good wealth plan and a good business plan may have 3, 4, 6 different types of scenario plannings. And kind of give you an example here, there are many different opportunities for taking just Social Security. Well, there may be many opportunities for taking anything related to your stock options as well. Or if you are a business owner, maybe it's how do we help our employees save money for their future, their retirement, but still maintaining a lot of money going towards your own retirement and making sure that you and your family are taken care of as well. You see, that is basically the difference between one scenario plan and maybe 5 plans. So just knowing where you're at, where you want to go, and then putting together some ideas of the future, that's the simple nature of what a scenario plan is. But sometimes you don't know what the future may be, And that's like what I always say, is that the future is uncertain. And so these plans that we're putting in place, they're highly uncertain. And we have to be comfortable with the uncertainty. We have to be comfortable with the fact that we don't know. Those plans are just that though. Those are the ideal outcomes for the future. But knowing that we do not know what the future will hold, we have to hold these with an open hand. Because if we close our hand to this, what that means is that we want to be saying this is never going to change, this is going to be always how it is. And we know that's not the case. So if we hold these plans with an open hand, that means the plans can change. We can change. We can always be there and doing something different. Well, again, that's the simple plan. But the difference between the simple and a complex is just one thing: who we have involved. For you, it may mean that we need to have some other professionals involved. So if that's helping with different scenario planning for your wealth plan, well, that may mean that we need to have some individuals involved that are very, very specific to the types of planning that we need to be doing. So this is where we take a look at everything all-encompassing. And the scenario planning that we go through, I call it the Lions Index. So that takes into account anything related to wealth enhancement, tax mitigation, wealth preservation, wealth protection, charitable gifting, wealth transfer, and for you business owners, it's one additional piece, which is the business enrichment piece. Now, all of those help us to create one scenario. But now we can look down the path and create second, third, fourth scenario for the different types of outcomes that are possible. That is how we look at scenario planning. The last step there is the monitoring of the plan, but that skips over one of the most important pieces, the implementation. How do we start working down those different plans? Well, we can take the best case scenario plan, so that's our ideal outcome, and we can start going down that path. So we can start putting plans in place and the strategies behind that. Once we have those scenarios, how do we make that happen? That's the strategy, but what we want to do from there is always monitor. That's that open-handed piece. Because if something changes, whether it is with the economy, with the stock market, with the way you want to be conducting your family wealth plan, or how we want to be transferring to people in the future because of different tax obligations, all of that may change dramatically on a yearly basis. And so having the ability to monitor and evolve the plans is what makes the okay wealth plan an actually really good wealth plan. And that all involves different strategies for the different scenarios. If you would like to learn more, please feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to talk through the different scenario planning and how that can positively affect your family as well as your business. Take care.